I didn't understand what my grandmother meant at first. Oh, that's good. My parents had left with my brother, and I was left behind like a fool. No one came back, and I was all alone and lonely. Although my mother and father abandoned me, my grandmother raised me with love, home-cooked meals, and warm smiles. She accepted me just as I was. After living true to myself for 20 years, my parents suddenly appeared before me. Apparently, they had seen me on TV, where I was featured as a successful researcher. They approached with barely concealed greed, wearing unbearable fake smiles. My stomach turned. This was all a result of their own actions. Even though it was the consequence of their behavior, watching them praise me with servile attitudes while desperately crying out, "A daughter has an obligation to help her parents," filled me with indescribable disgust. A boiling sensation grew stronger in my body, and my mind became increasingly clear. These people haven't changed at all. They still believe only their values are right, using them as a shield to conveniently use others and justify everything. They've never once considered how their actions might hurt others. They only approach superficially. So I can't take it anymore. I'm already walking my own path in life. I no longer need to think about people who have consistently ignored me. I have no attachment to you anymore. I felt it was time to say the words I had always wanted to say to my parents. I would renounce my inheritance rights and declare our relationship severed. I'm a 29-year-old researcher now. Since childhood, I loved playing outside, running around in puddles and sandboxes until I was covered in mud. As a child, when my science teacher talked about living things, I learned that even though we can't see them, they definitely exist. How wonderful it is that things invisible to the naked eye look completely different under a microscope. Wanting to see more interesting and unfamiliar things, I went to the bookstore and bought encyclopedias, but that wasn't enough to satisfy my curiosity. Since we didn't have a microscope at home and couldn't always borrow the schools, my teacher taught me about the beautiful work of living creatures. For example, how they decompose fallen leaves into soil, or live in the mud. Since fallen leaves and mud were easy to find, I became absorbed in searching for traces of these creatures' work while playing outside. Why are your clothes always dirty? How many times do I have to tell you? My mother would get angry when I came home with dirty clothes. You're a girl, so you should wear dresses and act like a proper young lady. Running around outside isn't something girls should do. Every time I played in ways that were opposite to her idea of how a girl should behave, Mother would scold me, saying that wasn't something I should do. At school too, I often got so absorbed in things that I couldn't focus on anything else. When my homeroom teacher came for a home visit and mentioned that I couldn't concentrate in class and was often distracted, Mother smiled and apologetically said, "I'll make sure she studies properly." But as soon as the teacher left, she grabbed my arm and started yelling so loud my ears hurt. Classes weren't interesting. Teachers just talked one-sidedly about content I couldn't understand. Just sitting there listening, I would waste time thinking about more interesting things. That kind of awareness started to develop. As a result, my test scores were extreme. Sometimes I would get nearly perfect scores, and other times I would end up in the 20s. The school teachers said it was much better than not being interested in anything at all, because my level of engagement was completely different. However, having even one subject below average was unbearable for my parents. They were the kind of people who repeatedly talked about how excellent they were. Mother believed that getting good grades and entering a prestigious university was necessary for creating a wonderful life. I noticed that people around us looked slightly uncomfortable, but Mother didn't notice and didn't care what others said. In her view, we clearly lived in an academic credential-based society, so the university you graduated from was an important criterion. Mother was the type of person who would aggressively attack anyone who held even slightly different opinions. I was treated like a child cursed by the gods. Father was the same way. Having graduated from medical school and become a medical researcher, he still remained at the university, collecting data at the university hospital while writing papers. He was someone who believed academic credentials determined a person's worth. Because of my parents' attitude, I couldn't accept or forgive my situation. What made it worse was that I had a brother who was their complete opposite. My brother was well-behaved and studied perfectly at school. He was exactly the honor student my parents wanted, given nutritious meals and dressed in expensive clothes. I was the complete opposite. Unlike my brother, I prioritized playing outside over following mother's orders to play house, so I rarely got new clothes. There was a clear difference in how my parents treated me and my brother based on their values. Still, I liked my brother, and he was kind to me. He would always help me with homework at his study desk, and when I didn't have any snacks, he would share his with me. I think the worst situation occurred when I was 9. My parents became consumed with work and my brother's education, and began treating me like I was invisible. They stopped preparing meals for me, and while they and my brother ate, I was confined to my room, supposedly for homework time. I would come out when my brother finished his bath, and if there was anything edible in the refrigerator, I would eat it. For clothes, I would wear whatever was clean and available. Sometimes I would watch videos about how to use the washing machine and do my own laundry. I remember feeling relieved when no one said anything about me doing it myself. There were days when I didn't see my parents at all. My parents were always busy with work, and on holidays, they spent time with my brother. Even when we were home together, it was as if they couldn't see me. Even if our eyes met or I tried to talk to them, they wouldn't respond, making it impossible to continue any conversation, and they increasingly ignored me. However, they read all the school handouts and provided necessary supplies. I guess they were prepared for me. Then one day, when I returned from school, I found a note on the living room table in the empty house. Your brother is transferring to a prep school. This house will be kept habitable. At first, I didn't understand what it meant. My brother was going to a different school. I had heard from him that he might transfer to a prep school, but I thought it hadn't been decided yet. But my parents had already made the arrangements. I read the words, "will be kept habitable," over and over. Finally, what I had been dreading became reality. My parents would go with my brother, and this house would be kept habitable for me. In other words, I wasn't needed. The moment I realized this, tears started streaming from both eyes. But it made sense, right? I couldn't study well, didn't listen, and got my clothes dirty. I desperately wanted my parents to notice me, but no matter how good I tried to be, once they saw me as an enemy, they would never forgive me. I was abandoned. That fact was so painful that I screamed and cried loudly. Outside it grew dark, and exhausted from crying, I thought again. I was still a 9-year-old child who couldn't do anything. But I couldn't live alone. Even with a house, how would I eat? Nothing could be done without money. Above all, I didn't want to be alone. That's when I remembered my grandparents. Grandma, whom I often visited. They were mother's parents, and I used to stay at their house frequently. But last year, when I heard that Grandpa had passed away and Grandma was living alone in the big house, there was some trouble between Mother and Grandma. The situation deteriorated, and we stopped visiting or meeting with my grandparents. Thinking about Grandma who was now alone, I desperately searched for her contact information. After searching desperately for information, I finally found an old handwritten address book in the shelf under the landline phone. It had Grandma's name and phone number. Although I had never made a phone call myself, I dialed the number written in the address book. I repeated the same thing 3 times before realizing I needed to lift the receiver for it to work. I picked up the phone again, held it to my ear, and pressed the numbers. After several rings, the sound cut off. "Hello, Grandma?" Grandma recognized my voice immediately, and when I explained my situation over the phone, she immediately said she would come get me and hung up, then drove over. When Grandma opened the front door and saw me, she gasped. She must have been shocked by my shabby appearance, but I felt relieved. I was overwhelmingly happy to see the kind grandmother from my memories standing before me. Grandma hugged me tightly as if jumping at me, her beautiful white hair enveloping me, her hands gently stroking my clothes. I felt even happier. Grandma patted my back gently and said, "I'll take you to my house." My parents and brother wouldn't come back. By leaving this house, I would really be cutting ties with my family. For a moment, I hesitated, feeling like I was leaving something behind. Just moments ago, I had been crying about being abandoned, yet there was still something in my heart that wanted to cling to something. Even though they said they didn't want a stupid child like me. "Oh, that's good then," Grandma said, and I looked up at her face, not understanding what she meant. "You've become free. Now you can eat whatever you like. We'll have to keep promises so we don't make each other feel bad or hurt, but other than that, you can do whatever you like and have fun. We can do it." Hearing Grandma's words, warmth spread through the center of my heart. I didn't yet understand what it meant to live freely and happily, but afterward, a feeling of anticipation began to grow in my chest. After moving in with Grandma, I transferred to a new school. Grandma's house was in a peaceful countryside area, and since the school was small with few students, although transfer students were rare, everyone was kind to me. There were teachers who properly paid attention to each student. They paid attention to each student individually, and I wasn't yelled at like before. I was told, "It's wonderful to have things you like," and I could research various things I was interested in, and there were books in the library. But what was important was to listen properly in class and do homework. If I did that, I could do whatever I liked as much as I wanted. Everyone accepted me. They taught me things I didn't understand. I wasn't denied. All this time, I had always been me. But those around me hadn't seen me as me. But now I was naturally accepted and could laugh a lot. There was a real treasure near Grandma's house. On the hill, there was a place where ancient fossils and buried forests had been excavated, and although large-scale excavations weren't being conducted anymore, fragments must still remain. More importantly, what kind of wonderful creatures had protected this land? What impact did they have? What was the terrain like? Were there different things in different layers? There were so many things I wanted to know. Every day I walked around everywhere, getting covered in mud. When I started digging in the soil with an interesting book in hand, I was surprised to find what looked like fossils. Every day was full of new discoveries and was interesting and fulfilling. Naturally, I started wanting to continue this in the future. 20 years have passed since my parents left me, and I turned 29. I flourished as a researcher specializing in biology, raised by my grandmother, and was able to obtain my doctorate after my 4-year doctoral thesis was accepted. After completing graduate school, I entered what was considered a major research institute. When my parents abandoned me, Grandma apparently immediately contacted Mother about taking me in. Naturally, Mother was reluctant, but Grandma threatened to consult the police, hire a lawyer, and take it to court if you don't fulfill your obligations. Being told that they should do what was minimally necessary as parents, Mother apparently sent money to Grandma. Of course, that wasn't enough to pay for tuition, so I used scholarships and special support systems to complete my education as quickly as possible. Now, I'm conducting research on fossil excavation and the condition of geological strata. Even as I've grown older, I feel my life is fulfilling because I can continue working in a field I'm interested in. Some people say that working over 100 hours of overtime per month is normal in research labs. While some people quit because they couldn't handle that environment, for me it's not exactly easy, but it's not painful either. I consider the nickname, "Tough Girl," to be a compliment. From my past experience of not being able to do what I wanted, I can't help but enjoy this job where I can maintain strong interest, research what I want to know to my heart's content, and encounter new discoveries and rare phenomena. Even when multiple tasks were running in my head, I organized and handled them one by one. When I could scrutinize information and derive answers, I felt like I had used my brain to its fullest, as if it was about to boil over, and I thought this was exactly the right job for me. The other day, when I accompanied an overseas fossil excavation team and analyzed sand collected there, I discovered a rare, beautiful organism and discovered its new function. Starting from the question of why this organism existed in this stratum, research revealed that it had important implications for biological evolution. When I noticed this discovery, I rushed to complete and submit a paper, but as a result, I had trouble leaving the field and was invited to conferences unrelated to research, and had to give interviews to experts and television, taking up extra time. After returning to America, just when I thought I could return to the institute and continue other research, the director ordered me to take a few days off, and that wasn't possible either. So I decided to return to Grandma's house. When I arrived at Grandma's house, I relaxed with pumpkin soup and herb tea. Grandma now lives alone and is getting older. While doing garden work, I was thinking about how I hoped she would stay healthy when the doorbell rang, and Grandma got up and headed to the door. Having lived in this sparsely populated area since childhood, all the neighbors were longtime acquaintances, so they didn't have the habit of pressing the intercom when they had questions. Even now, only delivery people properly ring the doorbell. Since Grandma never uses online shopping, I wondered who it could be, but when I heard the sound of slippers dragging and the door opening, I had a bad feeling. I thought she would return right after receiving the package, but Grandma didn't come back. Sensing the quiet air lingering at the entrance, I decided to head there myself and went out into the hallway. When I poked my head out, I heard someone call my name, and when I turned around, there was Grandma. At the door were a man and a woman. The woman called my name. "Elizabeth, I wanted to see you." I didn't notice at first. It had been 20 years. My father and mother, appearing quite drunk, were desperately calling my name with strained smiles. I wondered why they were here. I had lived normally for 20 years. Yet they had abandoned me 20 years ago. Grandma shouted at Mother. "She's my daughter. How dare you talk about celebrating when you haven't done anything special?" Apparently, my parents knew about my recent award. They probably didn't know I was here, but since Grandma was about the only connection they had to me, they must have come here and luckily found me visiting. My parents tensed up and kept their mouths shut. At least they seemed aware that what they had done was insane. Thinking I should get a proper explanation, I prompted them to tell me why they came, and my parents glanced at me and began to speak. The situation changed when my brother entered university. My brother, who had grown up exactly as our parents hoped, entered a top Ivy League school. There, for the first time, he was deeply exposed to a world different from our parents' values. My brother encountered the idea that so-called elitist education wasn't important. And in his senior year, he must have realized our parents' obsession. Then my brother chose the path of art, leaving only a note saying, "Please don't look for me," before disappearing. My brother is still missing, apparently. Having been abandoned by the son they had invested so much time and money in raising, my parents were devastated and moved several times. I don't understand what they mean at all, but did they try to fill the emptiness in their hearts with other things? I wanted to ask, why would you do that, but I reconsidered, thinking such people couldn't possibly have such feelings. Anyway, continuing such a lifestyle naturally depleted their savings and affected their real lives. They apparently lashed out at others in their workplaces. Mother, who was a teacher, repeatedly harassed younger colleagues, gave overly strict guidance to students, excessively interfered with their career paths, and caused several students to stop attending school. She was reported to the Board of Education, received disciplinary action, and both parties are apparently preparing to take it to court through lawyers. Similarly, father's oppressive attitude of looking down on colleagues with lower academic credentials became a problem. Not only did he repeatedly use abusive language, but he took the same attitude with hospital patients at the university hospital. Moreover, it was discovered that he had even tried to make advances on female patients he took a liking to. With a court case imminent and feeling they had reached an impossible situation, my parents tearfully explained their circumstances and approached me saying, "Elizabeth, let's live together. Let's support each other as family. After all, you're our daughter. You've done well. You've become a wonderful person. You've become famous in that world. From now on, let's support each other." These were unforgivable words. Support each other? What are they saying now? Family? I interrupted my parents' words and asked. Surprised by my voice, Mother took a breath before starting to speak. What is family? We might have a genetic connection, but aren't we not family? Why would you say such a thing? Mother's voice grew louder, as if trying to stop me. I felt nostalgia in that unchanged voice from long ago. I lost myself. But now, I realized I wasn't scared like before. Stop trying to twist things to suit yourselves. You're only coming to me because you're being sued for huge damages that you can't pay, right? Because my brother is gone, now it's my turn? Are you so desperate that you need to rely on the daughter you abandoned? Father didn't say anything, but Mother glared at me with wide eyes. It's natural for family to help each other. You'll get used to it soon. It's okay. From now on, let's live together and live life at our own pace. No way. I absolutely refuse. I never wanted to talk to such people again. When they said, let's live together, I reflexively thought that. Even when my parents raised their voices, my heart remained cold. Hurry and pack your things. We'll show you to our home. My parents' words became increasingly harsh. Just as you treated me as if I wasn't your real child, I've never thought of you as parents. It's just scary when strange uncle and aunt suddenly claim to be family and say they want to live together. Your only child is my brother, right? I don't want any involvement with you in the future. I thought this must be what it feels like to boil over. I felt heat rising from the pit of my stomach and my blood pressure rising, but inside I was calm. My parents' faces turned bright red. How selfish. Who do you think you have to thank? Daughters have an obligation to help their parents. Mother started shouting again. I could only sigh. I was thinking about how to talk to them. Do you think just giving money makes you qualify as parents? Grandma said calmly, but unfortunately, her words didn't seem to reach them. Watching them continue their incomprehensible claims in loud voices as always, Grandma sighed and showed signs of unease. While my parents continued shouting, suddenly we heard police sirens. As the sound grew louder, I thought there might have been an accident, but the car stopped in front of Grandma's house, and officers got out. I noticed a crowd gathering around the police car. In this rural area, if there's a big argument, the neighbors notice right away and report it like it's a major incident. My parents were severely shaken by the officers' appearance. The officers moved my parents to a location away from the house. Meanwhile, we closed the front door and locked all the locks. Fortunately, they never came to the house again after that. I heard from neighbors that my parents left after talking to the police as if nothing had happened. Although my parents appeared again a few days later, they didn't show up after that, and the neighbors didn't see them either. While thinking I needed to return home before my vacation ended, I felt somewhat relieved. Later, a new visitor appeared at Grandma's house. It's been a while, Elizabeth. I noticed a tanned man wearing a loose shirt smiling and calling my name standing at the entrance. It was my brother, who had been reported missing. I invited him in and listened to his detailed story. He said he realized something was wrong while interacting with various people at university. And he had been looking for an opportunity to escape from that house while saving money through part-time jobs. When he saved enough money, he went abroad. He said he wanted to meet different people and see different worlds. He traveled around the world, working in local places and moving to the next location, and during that time he took lots of photographs. He posted them on social media, and apparently a publishing company contacted him about holding a photo exhibition after seeing those photos. He said he returned to America as a photographer after several years, accepting that offer. When I was in Rome, I happened to see you receiving an award on the news. I came here because I wanted to see Grandma after returning home, but it was perfect timing to meet you too. My brother laughed loudly. Next, my brother looked straight at me and bowed deeper than I had ever seen before. I've wanted to apologize to you all this time. He showed no smile at all. When we lived together in that house, I thought nothing of the terrible things. You were barely given meals, and on holidays, our parents only took me out to play. Even though there was an obvious difference in the clothes we wore, I didn't think it was strange. I was just studying, and in between, I thought we were playing together like normal siblings. My brother frowned, gripped his clasped hands on his knees tightly, and shook his head. When I talked about siblings with my university friends and told them about the past and said I had a sister, everyone was shocked. That's when I finally realized it wouldn't be strange if you hated me. I should have left home and apologized right away. But I'm sorry for putting it off until now. You were living such a hard life, but I thought it was normal. I had no negative feelings toward my brother. Thinking about it, I didn't understand why only my brother had felt that way. Back then, I was also preoccupied with thoughts about our parents. I had no anger or grudge. My brother was the only one who talked to me normally at that time. When I said this, my brother's face contorted in pain. As tears welled up watching my brother's expression, Grandma came in carrying plates with oven mitts on both hands. From there, it was as if time had turned back. Nostalgic memories naturally came flooding back. Grandma's cooking. The taste I loved as a child. Let's eat lots together. Sitting across from my brother for the first time in a long while and eating the same food, tears welled up again. Afterward, my parents had to pay large damages. They're probably working now, bowing their heads to young supervisors and feeling humiliated, just like the people with low academic credentials they used to look down on, but I think that's a necessary experience for them. My brother and I want to make up for the 20 years we couldn't see each other. Grandma, my brother, and I keep in frequent contact, eat meals together, and feel very happy that we can spend time together as a family. I hope you too can spend happy days with the people who are dear to you.